Hey everyone, today we're taking a look at Dink Smallwood. Dink is one of the games that has sort of stuck with me through my entire life. It was released in 1997 and I probably played it a couple of years later. It came out as freeware in 1999, and that was a fairly big deal back then because I had got the internet a few years before. There wasn't a lot of quality freeware games around, and it's not like it is today where it's so much easier to buy games online. If you didn't buy a game in a store, which honestly I couldn't afford when I was 12 or 13 years old, freeware was really the only way to get decent quality experiences, and there just wasn't enough of it. So Dink was fairly famous and got fairly well known in the PC community for being free. Playing it back now, I'm playing the HD version, which essentially just adds a few new features. It's still quite fun and it's quite addictive, surprisingly, considering its age. Plays a lot like a mix between Diablo 2 and Zelda. It's much more of an action-y, fighting, shooty, magic game than it is anything to do with a plot. The plot is, it's all comedy. It's basically, you're a pig farmer and you want to be a hero, so you start doing these quests and you start off, say, rescuing a duck that gets lost and you end up saving the world. So it's what could have been a fairly typical story, but it does stuff that you won't see a lot in other games, even in comedy games. For example, there's a scene in the second or the first town you go to where you go to your aunt's house and she's helping you stay there after something happens in your home village. And there's this weird sort of out-of-character domestic violence scene where your uncle is beating up your aunt and you can choose to beat her up or you can choose to kill your uncle or not do anything. And set against the backdrop of the game, it's really quite strange. But overall, the comedy it's aged significantly better than I thought it was going to. It has a sort of Monkey Island Guybrush Threepwood quality a lot of the time. It's not as well written, and there's no voice acting even in this new version. But it's still pretty fun and worth playing through to the end. I think the whole game took me about 4 hours to play through, and there is a little bit of grinding in the middle. The controls are all keyboard based, so you've got up, down, left, right to move, and then shift and control and spacebar do your attacking, magic and talking to people. The menus are mouse operated if you want them to be, but everything else is done with the keyboard. When Dink first came out, there was a lot of pointing towards its buggy nature. It didn't get very good reviews. I mean, it did have a lot of bugs, considering how small the game was. And because it was sort of set against this backdrop of really good, high-quality isometric RPGs, it didn't really do anywhere. I don't think it even got a publisher in America, but it was published in the UK. So it didn't do great. And what happened was, they released an editor, and then the community released another editor after that runs on Windows, and it's been one of those games that has survived due to community input and modding input, so there's a lot of different add-ons. I'm not showing any of those in here, I'm just playing through the main game, but after that there's at least sort of 7 or 8 add-ons that are as long as the main game, and there are lots more that are shorter but still quite high quality. You can pick them up from the game itself in the browse menu. There's a few. There's not a lot, and I'm surprised that they haven't just added all of them. And there's loads of different websites that you can just stick the URL of the website in and the game will download it for you. So it's much easier than it used to be to get these all set up if you want to play them. The other thing that the HD version adds is, I don't think the graphics are any better from what I can tell. I think the interface has changed slightly. The two big changes are turbo key, which is brilliant. If you've ever used an emulator, what this does is it's the same thing as a turbo button. You just hit the button and stuff speeds up. And as you're doing a lot of backtracking and walking around, and the dialogue can be quite slow in the game, that's a really, really useful key to just get on with stuff and make the game a little more fun, a little bit quicker. The other useful feature is the quick save and quick load, which, just like an emulator, save and load wherever you are in the world, rather than using the save points, which is a bit of a 90s thing anyway, and it makes the game take longer if you die. So those are really useful features. Overall, I think Dink is definitely worth a go if you're interested in sort of the history of RPGs, because it's a fairly significant step forward in terms of the quality of freeware at the time. It's one of the few RPGs that has really got involved with the modding community in a way that it's exploded. I mean, with Baldur's Gate, there's a load of different mods, but they've always been working around the system and working around the code. But the fact the entire source code of this game is out there has let people do some really interesting things with it that they wouldn't have done otherwise. And I think that's worth taking a look at. And the game itself is surprisingly fun. All the bugs from the old version have been fixed. If you're into the sort of comedy games, you don't mind a game that isn't going to take itself too seriously. The combat is really basic. The stats are really basic compared to any other RPG out there, really. But it's still definitely worth trying out. You can pick the game up from the R2Soft website. Obviously, it's free. You can get mods from a variety of places that I'll put in the description. And you can also buy the game on iPad for, I think, around $1.99. Thanks for watching.